Hello Year 3, and we're going to have an English lesson now. Have a look at the background of this PowerPoint. I know I'm covering up quite a bit of it, but see if you can spot what that thing, well, those things are coming out of the clouds. Mrs. Ludlow has a slightly bigger head today, bigger talking head, because I'm going to read you a story. I want to show you some of the story as I'm reading it, and I've got the big storybook here that we're going to have a look at. Today we're going to be checking out the myth of the 12 Labours of Hercules. I'm going to read the story to you, which is from the book of Greek myths that we took the story of Icarus and Daedalus from when we did that last week. And there's also links to the Atlantis myth as well, because there is a reference to Hades, who is the god of the underworld, and he's one of the three brothers that we came across that first week. Do you remember who they were? It's quite hard to remember them. We had the sea god, which was Poseidon. Then we had the god of the heavens. Who was that? That was Zeus. And then the god of the underworld, who we come across in this particular myth, that is Hades. Okay, and there were the three brothers. So lots of the myths do link together, and so we're going to have a look at this today. So this is the book that we're going to have a look at. I'm going to read that to you. So our task today is to understand that Hercules, the character, or the god character Hercules, was so strong. He was actually half mortal, half god, and he had 12 tasks that he was given, so that he wanted forgiveness for something that went really, really badly wrong in his past, and he felt that he needed to be forgiven, and he had to do these deeds in order to survive. To start with, he needed to come out alive at the other end, and he would then be forgiven if he managed them. So what I'd like you to do, if you can today, you don't have to do this at all, is I'd like you to try and watch the video of Hercules. There is a Hercules film that came out in 1997, so it's quite an old film, but it's really a useful film, because it does go through some of the scary characters. You can see the one up the top here is it's a multi-headed Hydra, yeah, it has a bit of sort of what we call poetic license, so they haven't put everything. It's not absolutely sort of as true to some of the myths that you get, but obviously it's been handed down anyway. Myths have been retold and retold, so they're often, there's differences. If you get a myth in one book, you'll find that it might have a different starting place, it might have a different ending to somewhere else. So if you can watch that, do. Please don't go buying it. It's if you can watch it, that's great. We usually do show it in school, but obviously with lockdown we haven't got permission to do that, as it's a Disney film. We're not allowed to do that because of the copyright. However, you can find this on YouTube. Somebody has there's a couple of people actually that go in and take lots of clips, and they put them together as a full screen, as a full movie version. The quality is not great, but it's a way of seeing the full movie. And if you go onto YouTube and write in Hercules full movie 1997 full screen, then you will be able to find that playlist, and you literally just click on the first one, and then it will just constantly play. Okay, so you'll hopefully get to see the film. But as I said, it's not, you don't have to. This is enough for our purposes this week, hearing this. It's just so that you can understand the myth and so that the myth becomes familiar to you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read this for you now, and hopefully we'll get there. We'll manage to I've got some of the parts of the myths I've put onto post-it notes, because the this particular book doesn't use the specific titles for those tasks. I wanted you to know the real tasks that he had to do. So we've got the 12 tasks of Heracles. This says Heracles is the Greek name for Hercules. Hercules is actually a later Roman name that is referring to the same god. The Romans did love the god of Heracles because he was a very, very strong god. Okay, so Heracles, or Hercules as I'm going to call him, was a tough little baby. Everyone loved him but Hera, Zeus's wife, who sent 2 snakes to kill him. But Heracles strangled them both, so he is tough. No trouble, he said. And for a while, Hera ignored Heracles. As he grew up, Hercules became stronger and stronger and stronger. He married and had many children. Hera hated him so much. So one night she put a terrible spell on him, and he lashed out in his sleep with his sword, and he killed his imaginary enemies. But when he awoke, he saw he had killed all his children, all his own children. He was heartbroken. Hercules went to the temple to seek forgiveness. I must find forgiveness. Will the gods ever forgive me? And the oracle, the priestess, said he could put it right by serving his old enemy, King Eurystheus. But only if you do 12 tasks for your enemy, the king. I'll do 12 things and no more. The king was frightened of Hercules, so he hid in a pot whenever he came near. And there's a picture here, if you can see it, hold it up as close as I can, of the king hiding in a big vase with a lid on it, because he's worried that he's going to be hurt by Hercules. And because he hated Hercules too, he gave him 12 deadly tasks. I've got 12 really hard tasks for you, said the king, but with a bit of luck, you'll be dead after the first one. First, Hercules had to kill a huge lion whose hide was so thick, so his skin was so thick, that no sword could go through it. And when he killed it, it was called the Nemean lion. And when he killed it, he wore the skin and the head of the lion. And you can see it there. He wears it on his back like a cape. Okay. Next, he had to kill the many-headed Hydra, whose very breath could kill man or beast, and that was the Nemean Hydra. And they're on the back of the display here. They're many-headed Hydra. And when you cut off one of their heads, every head you cut off with a sword, 2 heads grow. So as soon as you chop those 2 off, you get another 2. So you get 4. Then you cut those 4 off, you get 8. So it's quite a scary thing. Thirdly, he had to capture the sacred golden horned deer. He's got horns on top of his head that are glowing with gold. An animal that's as quick as the wind, and that's called the stag of Artemis. You can see, there it is, just try and hold it up for you to see the stag with the golden horns. Very, very fast. The 4th task was to catch a savage boar whose tusks could pierce any armour, so seriously dangerous beast. A boar is like a wild pig. And it's the wild boar of Erymanthus. One of the ones I can say. Some of these are really hard to pronounce. Next, Hercules had to clean out in one night the huge and filthy stables of King Augeas, and these stables had been around for years and they'd never been cleaned out, so they were full of horsey poop. The Augean stables. I bet it was smelly, stinky. Oh. Right, next page. So that's 5 down. We've got 7 to go. Then he had to destroy a flock of man-eating birds which hid in a dangerous swamp. And it looks as though he shot those with arrows. They were Stymphalian birds. And the 7th task was to capture the fire-breathing, marauding bull of Crete. And we know Crete is the place that the Minotaur came from, which was half bull. So it sounds like Crete, they quite like their cows, don't they, down there? Next, he had to steal Diomedes' horses, and they used to eat human flesh. Nice. And the king, they takes them back to the king, and he's shouting out, "Take them away before they eat me!" And they're the mares of the horses, the mares of King Diomedes. Then Hercules had to fetch the golden girdle worn by the queen of the Amazon warrior women. And that was the girdle of Hippolyta. They're very scary, the Amazonians. They're very tough. The 10th task was to seize the monster Gerion's cattle, the cattle of Gerion, guarded by his 2-headed dog. So there's some very strange creatures in here. There's the 2-headed dog there. Hopefully you can see that. The 11th task was to collect 3 golden apples that were protected by a ferocious dragon. And in this one we have Atlas, who is the firstborn son of Poseidon and Plato, if I remember rightly. Am I right? And he is the god that's holding up the sky. He's holding up the sky in this one. And the 3 golden apples are protected by a dragon, and it looks as though Hercules kills the dragon. And he takes the apples back to the king, and he says to the king, "I've been working for you for 10 years and I'm fed up." And the king from his little pot says, "So am I, but there's one task left." And the 12th one, his 12th and last task, was the most dangerous of all. Is to fetch the 3-headed guard dog, Cerberus, from hell itself. And who's the god that's in charge of the underworld? Who's in charge of hell? The brother of Zeus and Poseidon. So this Cerberus dog belongs to Hades. So he's had to go and take the dog, and he's saying here in this little cartoon, "Let me take you on a nice holiday." So he takes him to the king, and then after he sees the king, he has to take him back down to hell. His 12 tasks were completed. Hercules returned to King Eurystheus. "Open up one last time." The king was so dismayed to see him alive, he quickly sent him packing. "Don't ever come back." Then, to avoid angering the gods, Hercules sent Cerberus back to Hades. "Time for us to go home, little fellow." So he's sending the 3-headed dog back. At the temple, Hercules was finally pardoned, which means he was finally forgiven. He was happy at last, and he was stronger than ever. I'm definitely the strongest man in the world, he said to Hera. She was not impressed. She just went, phew. And Hera never bothered him again. And that's the very end. So he's been forgiven, he's carried out his tasks, he survived, which I was quite pleased with, and he did go through some quite scary moments there, didn't he? With all those terrible creatures and weird and wonderful places, and yeah, quite scary. Hopefully you've got an idea of what he went through in order to feel better about himself and to get his pardon from the priestess, and to live a much happier life afterwards. It took him years. So there we go. Hopefully you'll have a little chance to have a look at your video. Don't worry if you don't. Not a whole load of writing or anything like that today. It's just to get your idea, you know, your brain round this story. That he did it. You know, why did he do the labours? Well, because he wanted forgiveness for all this awful thing that had happened with his children. Okay, so hopefully you'll get on all right with that today, and we'll carry on with this work tomorrow. Okay, thanks very much.